It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell, and this is November 3rd, 2020, Election Day. Oh, man, we got a lot to talk about. There's a lot I want to get through here in this short half hour. So let's get right to it. First of all, if you haven't voted yet, get on out there. Especially, well, everybody. We need numbers. But these are the states that all the polls are telling us are the toss-ups. Well, no, not toss-ups. Let me correct that. Swing states. They are Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Texas, Wisconsin. If you are in any of those states, I'm asking you right now, make sure you vote. By my way of looking at it, I think Arizona, Florida, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, those are the true toss-ups. Those are the real, for my money, what I'm looking at, Arizona, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Not that the others aren't in play. They are. All the ones I mentioned are in play. I think leaning blue, Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire. I think they're leaning pretty heavily blue. That's my final take on this. This is as close to a prediction as I'm going to get. I think leaning orange would be Iowa, Ohio, and Texas. So let's just, for the fun of it, let's just call this a prediction, okay? I'm predicting Texas, Ohio, and Iowa for the Orange Menace. I'm predicting Georgia, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, and New Hampshire for Joe. And the ones I'm really putting in the toss-up category, Arizona, Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Whatever way they go, so goes the nation. And so goes the election, and so goes the fate of the planet. All right, this is important. You can still register to vote at your polling place. Take an official ID. Make sure you have a photo ID. And make sure you have proof of residence. That means like a utility bill, something official with your address on it. You can register to vote on Election Day in several states, including Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Wisconsin. There are other states as well, but the ones that really matter for our purposes today, Iowa, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Hampshire, and Wisconsin. So I'm begging you, do not sit this out. Do not sit it out. All right, I want to pick up from yesterday just for a minute. We don't want to go back to this. We talked an awful lot about violence yesterday. That is still a concern. You already know, you've seen it all over the news. We talked about it yesterday, how downtown businesses, stores are all boarded up in anticipation of violence. The White House in lockdown, a big old fence around the whole perimeter. We talked yesterday about how we might need to hit the streets depending on what happens tonight, especially if the Orange Menace comes through with his promise of sending in his army of lawyers the minute the polls close to try to shut down the count. And I mentioned a website yesterday that I'll give you again, protecttheresults.com, protecttheresults.com. This is a way to go out a little more organized. You can find an event near you. There's a map on this website. So you can find an event and go to it, or you can host your own event. And you can create one on this website. You don't want to just go out on your own. It might be crazy out there tonight, but hitting the streets with large numbers might be necessary depending on how tonight goes. All right, so that's just all picking up on what we said yesterday. What I didn't mention yesterday, and I meant to and I should have, I'll fix that right now, and that is if things go south, again, the old dad advice, hope for the best, plan for the worst. Common Dreams article from Friday. Unions representing hundreds of thousands of workers prepare for general strike if Trump subverts election results. Paired with people in the streets, a strike could help stop a GOP coup. Julia Conley, staff writer, Common Dreams. Dozens of labor unions have resolved to consider a general strike after November 3rd should President Donald Trump refuse to accept the results of the election or sabotage the counting of ballots, with organizers calling a work stoppage the most powerful tool the movement has to protect democracy. this is another option. Now, it's been many years since, I don't know the last time we had a general strike. Historians, help me out. This happens occasionally in Europe, in other parts of the world. It doesn't seem to be part of our culture, but it may well be a necessary tool. Nothing gets the attention of the ruling class like hitting their bottom line. And an all-out general strike, and that would include a consumer boycott. Kind of put those in the same camp here. If you're a worker, you strike. If you're a consumer, you boycott. You shut down the flow of money and profit, and that gets people's attention, and that gets results. And we may well be at that point. Well, I've called for this pretty much every day for my whole adult life, because I think we're always at the point. But the Orange Menace screwing with the results of this election and getting his army of lawyers all oiled up and into the machine of democracy, if that doesn't get us going, I don't know what does. So I'm going to encourage you to really think about this. Think about your life as a worker, and if you're able to throw yourself into this kind of an effort, think about your life as a consumer, and think about how you can throw your own wrench into the works by way of a boycott. And on that side of the ledger, if you're a consumer boycotting, you have to make it well known. You have to let them know that you're doing it. You have to write corporate leaders and political office holders and tell them exactly what you're doing. I'm boycotting your product unless and until you forcefully and loudly stand on the side of democracy and against this chicanery. So you get on the phone, you get on your email machine, you get on your text bot, you let them know your intentions. Anybody you normally do business with, you let them know that that's your intention. You do it loudly and clearly. And you send a CC to everybody who represents you, from your local assembly person to your mayor, your representatives in Congress, and to the White House. You let everybody know exactly what you're doing. And if you're a worker, if you're not already organized, if you can get organized, a general strike, that gets them. That gets them every time. So there's that. I wanted to make sure that I pointed you to that article and to that idea. Might be necessary because, and that gets us into this whole, and you've been hearing it in the news the last few days, the Orange Menace said it himself. He said, quote, "We're going to go in the night of. As soon as that election's over, we're going in with our lawyers." That's a quote. We know, there's no longer speculation. We know that the Orange Menace is behind in the mail-in ballots. The pollsters know it. We know it. He knows it. And all speculation right now is that he's going to win today. Of the voters who go in and vote in person today, November 3rd, especially in the important states he needs, Pennsylvania being right at the top of the list, counting only today's votes, he's going to have a lead tonight. It might be a very substantial lead. If you've been watching the news at all, you know how this works. So that's what he's counting on. He knows he can't win without cheating. So he's going to try. When we turn on the numbers tonight, God, I hope the media does a good job of explaining this. I think they will. What I've been seeing the last few days, they seem to be pretty conscientious about this. I think they'll make it very clear to their viewers that if the Orange Menace has a 10-point lead tonight in Pennsylvania, that's only because there are so many mail-in ballots yet to count. That 10% lead only reflects what happened today. And when all the ballots are counted, that certainly won't be the case. But that's his little game, and he's not even been secretive about it. He's often quite open about his chicanery. The first polls close at 7 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. Florida, Georgia, North Carolina. We talked about this. Those three big early states. And then an hour later, it's Pennsylvania. I think, don't quote me on that. I forget exactly when the polls close there. But early in the evening, he's going to point to those numbers, and we're going to see tweet storms like we've never seen before. Get out your umbrella. The tweet storms are a-coming. But of course, you have to know, and again, I hope the media does a good job tonight. You have to know that, yes, this is unusual because of the pandemic. Yes, we've had, 3, 4, 5, 10 times more mail-in votes than we normally have. But the fact is, it's not unusual. a half a dozen times just in my lifetime. Don't laugh. That's not that long. We've had election results that didn't happen the night of. Well, basically, that's 100% of the time. We never have election results the night of. What we have is the Associated Press calling it based on early numbers. We never have a full count. It always takes days to get a full count. That's just the way it's always been. But what we all prefer is that the AP calls it just in time for the 11 o'clock news, and then we all just go to bed and have it done. That's what we like. The AP calls it, the loser calls the winner, concedes, and for all intents and purposes, it's done. I mean, we still have to have the actual electoral votes counted on December 14th. All of that still happens. But psychologically, culturally, we've got this in our heads that that's what we prefer. Now, it'd be great. Maybe that'll still happen tonight. Wouldn't that be wonderful if it did? That's what I'm hoping for. But we know his intention. He's going to lawyer up, send in his lawyer army. I mean, why do you think he's locking down the White House and putting up an unscalable fence? Because he knows that what he's doing will evoke a very serious response from we the people. And it will, and it should. Now, here's the good news. Headline, GOP lawyer, my party is destroying itself on the altar of Trump. The nation's leading Republican election lawyer is publicly warning his GOP brethren about the dangers of their misguided partnership with Donald Trump. I think this is great. You may remember this name, Ben Ginsberg. Ginsberg was W's general counsel. He was in on Bush v. Gore. He was in with the Swift boaters. He's a longtime GOP guy. He's got blood on his hands in the field of election law, but this is going too far even for him. Because Ben Ginsberg is currently condemning his party's antics, according to MSNBC. In early September, he wrote a Washington Post op-ed criticizing the Orange Menace and his unstable attempts to undermine confidence in the credibility of election results. Yeah, you got to remember, the Orange Menace has been doing this for literally for months. He's been laying the groundwork for all this with the demeaning of the mail-in ballot and his efforts to sabotage the post office and this whole election night, it's got to be over thing. He's been teasing this for months. So Ginsberg said, nope. Still looking at this MSNBC article. 3 weeks later, after the initial op-ed, Ginsberg wrote another Washington Post op-ed arguing that Trump's refusal to commit to a peaceful transfer of power was problematic for everyone, including members of his own party. Last week, Ginsberg co-authored another Washington Post op-ed defending the U.S. electoral system from Trump's attacks and arguing, quote, the president's attempt to undermine the election is a self-serving assault on a fundamental American system. It should be condemned across party lines. So I just found this interesting. It's not, you could just call it inside baseball. I'm hoping, this is my hope, that of all people, GOP election lawyer Ben Ginsberg can be the conscience of his GOP election lawyer colleagues. The old idea that somebody tried to put on a war, but nobody showed up to fight it. I forget how the quote goes from the 60s. This is what I'm hoping for. The Orange Menace has an army of lawyers, he thinks, and he's going to try to put on this war starting tonight. He's going to fire the first shot as soon as the polls close. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the soldiers didn't show up? If there are other GOP lawyers who say, no, this is going too far. I can't even be a part of this. As bad as I am, I can't even be a part of this. So let's hope. But he's doing it. He's sending in the lawyers. He's counting on his hand-chosen Supreme Court. As has been mentioned, this was days ago. I don't know how many. I don't know what the number is now. They were reporting several days ago there were already more than 300 lawsuits of Republicans trying to suppress the vote and Democrats trying to protect the vote, either the vote itself or the count afterwards. So it's in play. It's in play. All right, so here's what else I have to talk about today. I've got so much, I'm going to run out of time. Today's episode of The Log, November 3rd, 2020, might be the very last program where we have to talk about this guy. I mean, every day, every single day, there are stories that I feel we can't ignore, even though I get so sick of talking about him. Just think about it. At this time tomorrow, we might never have to talk about him again. How wonderful would that be? What a great world that would be, right? So before that day comes, I want to point out a story that we didn't even get to. I can't believe there's so many stories every day, and some of them I just don't get to. 700 deaths from COVID-19, 30,000 cases caused by Trump rallies. Stanford researchers, and they used the term unequivocal when talking about their findings. You probably heard the story. I feel like it's worth mentioning. 30,000 cases, 700 deaths directly attributable to his rallies. Now, you may have seen the headline on this. What you might not have seen, that only took us to September 22nd, a total of 18 rallies. 18 through September 22nd. That is, let's see, 40 days ago? How many rallies has he had since September 22nd? And they keep getting bigger and bigger. So if 18 rallies were responsible for 700 deaths, how many rallies has he had since September 22nd? At least 18, and at 2 and 3 and 4 times the size. So I think it's pretty safe to say that you can at least double this, at the very least. When this is all said and done, he's going to be responsible for a couple of thousand deaths that he's directly responsible for because of these ridiculous rallies. No masks, no social distancing. You see them on the news every night. People packed shoulder to shoulder for hours and hours. Forget that they're outside. If you're packed together shoulder to shoulder for hours at a time, this virus is having a party. And now the big chant at one of yesterday's rallies, the new chant, they want to lock everybody up and they want to fire Fauci, fire Fauci, fire Fauci. That's the new one. That's the new chant. And he smirks and he's coy. He says, oh, well, maybe I could do that for you. So we won't have to talk about this guy anymore. 24 hours from now, there's a possibility. I'm not predicting anything, but it's like the final game of the season when your favorite ball player hasn't announced his retirement yet. Everybody says, oh, we might be watching his last game. We don't know, but we might be watching his last game today. Well, that's where we are with this guy. Today could be it. This could be it. Oh. Now, at some point, we don't have to do it tomorrow, but there will be other things to talk about, as in, will he be arrested? And when is that going to happen? That's going to be an interesting story. Entire cable channels will be devoted to that, and that'll be fine. But that'll be a little sidelight. That might even be fun. In fact, it will be. We'll enjoy that. Because he very well may be arrested. As Joe puts his hand on the Bible and raises his right hand, the Orange Menace might well be in cuffs. You know he's not coming to the inauguration. There is no way in hell the Orange Menace shows up at that inauguration. I'm making that prediction right now. He won't be there. I'm not sure if he'll be in cuffs. That's a pretty bold prediction. Might be nice. The whole thing about how, is he crazy? Is he not crazy? All the psychologists want to diagnose him. Fine. Down the road. We don't have to talk about it. We can because it might be fun. Or it might be sad. It might be dramatic. But it won't be part of our day-to-day things we have to deal with in order to function as America. It'll just be over there on that other channel where it can be this really fun little hobby that everybody has. Now, on a more serious note, if Joe Biden even hints at pardoning this guy, oh man, now we're talking about filling the streets and having another general strike. We cannot allow that to happen. There's no Gerald Ford pardoning Richard Nixon repeat here. No. We cannot have that. There's going to be a legal reckoning for the Orange Menace. He's got all these cases against him. He's got the rape allegations. He's got the taxes. He's got court cases up to his big flabby neck. And if it was up to me, he'd be in The Hague facing human rights charges and mass murder. I'm not exaggerating. It's what he deserves. But that can all wait. This might be, I'm not saying it is, this might be the last day that we have to talk about him because we have no choice. There are two exceptions to this. One, he might literally be a flight risk. The whole put him in cuffs as Joe is taking the oath, that's not being funny. That's real. That's actually real. There's a second scenario where he stays in the everyday large font headlines, and that is if he engages in some lame duck monkey business. If he loses, and if he and Mitch McConnell try to do big things during the lame duck session, and at this point I'm not even pretending to know what that might be. I'm here in Wisconsin where we saw the Republican state legislature in their lame duck session after Scott Walker had lost the election for governor. The Wisconsin state legislature passed laws to limit the powers of the Democratic Governor Evers coming in. And they did that during the lame duck session. It was challenged in court, but of course at the time the Wisconsin Supreme Court also had a very strong conservative majority, so they upheld this power grab engineered by the Republicans in the Wisconsin state legislature. So those two things, if the Orange Menace becomes a flight risk, and if he and the lame duck Congress try to engineer some kind of similar power grab in their lame duck session, that'll keep him in the headlines. So if we don't have to talk about this guy anymore, this might be it. Oh, from my lips to God's ears. God, it's tough to be an atheist on days like this. Really tough to be an atheist on a day like today. They say there are no atheists in foxholes. There are no atheists on election day. Now, after this, I really believe this. Here's a prediction. The Orange Menace will become a cottage industry, a huge one. You know how there are whole cable channels devoted to Hitler and World War II, and it's like a hobby. People want to know all about Hitler. He's become this figure as large as he was in life, even larger in history. He becomes this icon that people are endlessly fascinated with. I really believe that's the future for the Orange Menace. There are going to be books, television series, documentaries, an endless supply. It's going to be like the Beatles, who just never stopped selling. We never stopped buying Beatle records for the last 50 years, 60 years. And for the last 70 years, Adolf Hitler has been the poster boy of bad guys. Millions of devoted, not fans, but equally devoted in their fascination. I think that's where Trump is. I think his name will forever be universally known and studied and explored. I don't think there'll be much controversy. Nobody's going to call him a good guy. Nobody's going to defend him. I don't see that happening. But I think there will be endless fascination, and I think an entire industry will be born. But again, it's over there. We don't have to tune in. Only if we're one of those hobbyists, amateur historians who are fascinated with this area of history and this particular larger-than-life character in history. It'll be strictly our choice to go over there if we want to. And if we don't, shut the door, and we never have to think about it again. And if indeed that happens, and we do not know yet, making no predictions, then we have a whole new agenda. And believe me, there are items on that agenda that have been ignored for far too long. Real reform. I mean, big picture stuff. Now we're talking serious reform. We're talking election reform, judicial reform. The whole notions of court packing, the Supreme Court, the federal courts, they're all out of whack. That's something we talk about. We'll have time to talk about that. Leaders will actually have opportunities to debate great issues. Wouldn't that be something? If we're not constantly putting out the fires. There's legislative reform, the makeup of the Senate, the drawing of district maps, idea of new states, which I think is really a great idea we've got to talk about. And we could do this. We really can do this. I'm going to leave you today with the words of Heather Cox Richardson, who has really become lately, with her Letters from America, or whatever she calls it, she's really become kind of a national treasure. She's a history professor and an observer of the national zeitgeist with her historical perspective. She's really become a go-to for me every day. And I want to end with this, something she wrote a couple days ago, where she's talking about how she's excited about democracy and that this might be our opportunity. She says, I won't read the whole thing, but in part, democracy is rising. It might not win on Tuesday, but if not then, the week after that, or the month after, or the year after more than 30 years studying our country's history, I have come to believe in American democracy with an almost religious faith. The future looks wildly exciting, full of different voices, races, religions, foods, gender identities, books, ideas, inventions, music, clothing, political identities, perspectives. In the past, when we have come through a period in which a small group of Americans has taken control of our society and ordinary Americans have taken it back, industry, art, science, and civil rights have blossomed. For my part, I don't expect to like everything that happens in such a fertile world, but I do expect to learn and grow and feel privileged to watch the construction of a world that reflects our people at their best. We are artists, nurses, scholars, potters, welders, moms, dads, photographers, lawyers, writers, politicians, teachers, landscapers, boat builders, bankers, and doctors, people from every imaginable background brought together by our love for this country and what it has the potential to be. So that's Heather Cox Richardson, historian and national observer. I'll give her the last word today. I think we could very well be there. And I'd love to be a part of that. It's finally here. For 4 years, we've been thinking about this day. So let's all hope for the best. I have no idea what the nature of our conversation will be tomorrow. All right, get out and vote. If you haven't voted, get out and vote. Reminder, you can register at the polls if you need to in Wisconsin, New Hampshire, Nevada, Minnesota, Michigan, and Iowa, among other states. But those are the ones, oh man, we really need you. Get out and vote. Check the Charles Purcell Facebook page tonight starting at 6 p.m. Central. My Facebook room, if you want to just drop in anytime just to say hello, share a thought. I will pin that address to the top of my feed on the Charles Purcell Facebook page. So go there, click on that, say hello. All right, good luck to us all. Let's do this thing. I'm Charles Purcell. This is The Log. Talk to you tomorrow.